everyone, and welcome back to Anne's Family Recipe. Today I'm sharing 2 delicious cookies and 1 fun, easy treat that I made for the Christmas season, but they would be perfect any time of year. I'm starting with my favorite Christmas cookie of all time. They're called triple chocolate cherry cookies. I think I've been making this recipe for decades now. They're just the best. So I'm going to mix together the dry ingredients first. I have 1 cup of all-purpose flour, a 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder, a teaspoon of baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of instant coffee powder. And I always keep this instant decaf on hand because I can't drink caffeinated coffee, but this is perfect in a pinch for adding that little bit of coffee flavor when you're baking. These don't taste too strongly of coffee, but it really brings out the richness of the cocoa powder in these cookies. So then I whisked all the dry ingredients together. And in a separate mixing bowl, I had 1 stick or 1/2 cup of unsalted butter that was at room temperature. And to that, I added 1 cup of sugar and then creamed those together. Then I added a large egg, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and mix that together. Next, I added the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients. Just start on a low speed with this because they will be a cocoa powder cloud at first, but eventually it will all get incorporated together. And then lastly, you have to add the mix-ins. So I started with a cup of dried cherries. I love these so much. They're bigger than raisins, and cranberries too. They're like super juicy and plump. I just love them in these cookies. They're nice and chewy too. Gives it a great texture. They also have almost a slight cinnamony flavor to me too. And then I use these hot cocoa and marshmallow chocolate chips that I found at Aldi earlier this season, but you can use any combination of half semi-sweet chocolate chips and then half white chocolate chips. I've even bought, I think the Nestle Toll House brand makes, it kind of looks like a Hershey Hug, but they're miniature form, so it's a twist chocolate chip that's white and semi-sweet chocolate. Anyway, use what you want, but that's where you get the triple chocolate from. The cocoa powder in the dough, and then the semi-sweet and white chocolate chips. So I mix that all together by hand. Then I lined 2 baking sheets with silicone baking mats, and I scooped these out using my medium cookie scoop, giving them a little bit of room to spread as they baked. And then these bake at 350 degrees, only for about 10 to 12 minutes. And then I allowed them to cool on a baking rack completely before eating. And you can see just how thick and kind of fudgy and chewy and just full of deliciousness these are. These are amazing. And they freeze really well too. I always take my cookies, once they've cooled, I'll eat a couple and then put them right into a Ziploc bag and into the freezer so that I don't eat them all in one sitting. And you can get them out whenever you want, let them thaw, and they'll taste fresh baked. So delicious. Next up, I'm making my all-time favorite chewy chocolate chip cookie recipe. This is from Sally's Baking Addiction, so I'll link that recipe for you down below. But I wanted to jazz this up a little bit and brown my butter first. So I had 1 1/2 sticks of unsalted butter, and I brought this to a simmer and then stirred this and let it cook until the fats started to brown. So you want to stir this pretty continuously, and after a few minutes, you'll see that there'll be some little brown bits at the bottom of your pan. And then you want to turn the heat off so it doesn't burn, and then I poured it into a glass measuring cup so it could cool down a little bit. But this makes the butter have sort of a toasty, caramely flavor. It just adds a little bit of complexity to any baked good that you're making. It's awesome. So I highly recommend adding this extra step next time you're making your favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe. For the dry ingredients, I'm whisking together 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, 1 1/2 teaspoons of cornstarch, which helps makes the cookie dough a little bit soft and chewy, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then in a separate bowl, I added my cooled browned butter, so it was 1 1/2 sticks, unsalted, then a 1/2 cup of white sugar and 3/4 of a cup of packed light brown sugar. To this, I added 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract, 1 large egg, and 1 egg yolk. And unfortunately, you can see when I tried to separate my egg yolk from the egg white, I immediately broke the yolk. So I kind of just had to throw it into the bowl real quickly. But it worked out just fine. And this recipe is designed for you to not have to use any kind of hand mixer or stand mixer. You could just use a wooden spoon or a rubber spatula to mix it all together. So first I stirred all of the wet ingredients together, then I added in the dry ingredients. Do not be alarmed, this is a slightly crumbly dough, but it does come together in the end. I also added in 1 bag of these Belgian chocolate chunks. I got these at Aldi. It's just like a semi-sweet chocolate chip, but they're slightly larger pieces. They're just nice and rich. They get kind of melty in the cookie. And again, I thought this would make them a little more festive for the holiday season, along with that brown butter. So then I switched over to a wooden spoon here just to help me incorporate everything together. And you'll see the chocolate chips aren't gonna stick completely into the dough, but I pack them in as I scoop them with my medium cookie scoop onto my lined baking tray, and it works out just fine. So I am scooping these out and putting them very close together on the tray. Do not worry, I'm not going to bake them yet. This dough does need to be refrigerated, at least for an hour before baking, but I made these the day ahead of time, so I just scooped out all of my dough, covered this, and popped it in the fridge. And then the next day, I spaced them out a little more. I think I had about 12 or 15 cookies per tray because they need a little room to spread. And then they bake at 325 degrees for about 12 to 13 minutes. They're going to get a little brown around the edges, but you don't want to overbake them. So once you pull them out, they'll continue to cook a little bit as they sit on that hot cookie tray. And then you can move them to a cooling rack if you'd like to finish cooling completely. But these are so chewy and gooey on the inside. They just have amazing flavor. I love them so much. This last treat I have never tried before, but it was so easy. To be honest, I didn't do any of the making, maybe a little bit. I think I put the M&Ms on at the end, but I had my kids help me with this one, and it was a very easy task for them to do. My son Ben unwrapped all of the Hershey's Hugs and all of the Rolo candies, which is like a chocolate-covered liquid caramel. And then Jack and Emma lined up all these pretzels on a lined baking tray, and these are called pretzel snaps, so they're the square shape. And then you just put a hug or a Rolo on top of each one, pop them in the oven at 350 for 2.5 to 3 minutes. It doesn't take long at all for the candies to start to melt a little bit. And then you take an M&M and gently kind of tap it down into the top of each one. I love the way these look with the Hershey Hugs in particular. These you could make for any holiday. There will be Valentine's Day M&Ms. Well, there probably already are Valentine's Day M&Ms in the grocery stores. So you can make those coming up. They'd be great with springtime colors for the Easter season. They're just a really yummy, easy treat that you can make for yourself or to gift. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're new and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you so much for joining me here today, and I'll see you again soon.